My name is Max Banfield. The title of this YouTube video is Banfield Research. It has about 30 minutes of slides and audio and describes how I do research and some of my world first discoveries. For example, the posture theory of 1980, my invention of the standing computer desk, 1998, my world first discovery of the cause of lower left-sided chest pain, 2014. It describes also the exercise and other methods which I developed to treat chronic fatigue syndrome between 1976 and 83, and how I survived cancer for 23 years and heart disease for 18 years. It also describes some copyright issues and will be useful to patients and researchers of the future. This is my illustration which shows the first 5 diagrams, Thomas Huxley's 19th century views of the evolution of man, followed by a diagram of a man sitting at a desk and leaning forward, which shows my idea about one of the causes of the diseases of modern civilization. And it's followed by another 5 diagrams which indicate some of the countless experiments that I did in the process of developing the standing computer position and the related standing computer desk. This illustration gives some indication of my brand of research and how I solve problems. The starting point is usually people saying, we don't know the cause, more research is needed. My aim is to solve problems that haven't been solved before. My method is to plan, proceed and diversify where others say it's impossible, and my goals are to get research results in exchange for royalties. The results are 40 years of world first discoveries. What other people said when I started was, you're wasting your time, give up. They continue to say that through much of my progress. I produce possibilities when none existed before. The principle, leave no stone unturned. I gained my ideas and evidence from a broad range of sources. The methods include polymathics, philosophy and biography, studying the biography of a diverse range of people. My problem solving involves extrapolation, expansion and deduction. To succeed in solving such problems, necessary to have patience, perseverance and creativity. Practicing this makes perfect. I use science and scientific method, experimentation and medical knowledge. I take calculated risks, not foolish risks, and I always have backup plans. This illustration is to present information based on the suggestions that in order to promote ideas, you need such things as jingles, and you need to present some aspects of personality into objective studies. It's entitled Banfield Research. This is a poem that I present and is, of course, based on an old nursery rhyme. The new Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So he said, damn, I have to put myself back together again. And then he said, where does this smashed up bit of bloody shell go? And what are these other bits doing here? These are some comments which people will recognise. Necessity is the mother of invention. If you've got a problem, sometimes you need to solve it yourself. Don't tell me it can't be done. Spin that yarn to someone else. Tell me I will fail and you'll be speaking to deaf ears. What can't be done today can be done tomorrow. It is better to do something yourself rather than wait for someone else to do it, who may or may not do it. Don't say it can't be done, say why not and how. Never assume that something which looks like a brick wall is a brick wall until you push on it, because it may be just a curtain of wallpaper. My critics are people who can't do what I've already done and will do again. I walk the walk, my critics just talk the talk. Question: how many eyes and brains do critics have? Answer: 2 big ones. My critics are like bull ants who stand in front of a slowly moving steamroller. This is a photo of my computer desk, which resulted from 23 years of research and experiments, and it is the world's first standing computer desk. Note the different height and angles of the shelves, keyboard and screens. This slide shows various items which are relevant to the development of my ideas about posture and health. It shows a photo of my book about the health biography of Robert Louis Stevenson, a photo of my gymnastics experience when young. The photo on the right is captioned with these words: "As a teenager I played a lot of sport and was involved in athletics, gymnastics and swimming. In this photo I am somersaulting from a unicycle which is 9 foot 6 inches high. I later developed a chronic fatigue syndrome and read the popular opinions that it was due to the fear of exercise in youth, which is why it was important for me to continue my research and correct that misunderstanding. It is not due to the lack of exercise or the fear of exercise. I had several health problems in 1975, including severe fatigue, but they weren't relieved by any form of medical treatment. So I joined an exercise class at a medical research organisation called the SA Institute for Fitness Research and Training in 1976. The standard treatment was the same as for sport, to start at a low level and gradually improve each week in order to return to normal fitness and health. While following those instructions I became worse, so I slowed down and began experimenting and exercised in my own way and at my own pace. A few years later I found that the world's best researchers couldn't get patients to train for 12 weeks because they would drop out of the course before useful data could be gained. In 1982, the head of the institute where I trained invited me to design a program for other patients. Several trained for more than 24 weeks and the world's first success was reported in newspapers. Since then it became known as the chronic fatigue syndrome. Other individuals have claimed to have invented the method and improved it, but they didn't invent it and they haven't improved it. However, they have given it various labels. For example, they called it pacing or staying within the energy envelope. Thousands of research projects have studied that method and found it to be the best, and it remains the best treatment to date in 2015. This page shows two newspaper reports. One is from August the 5th, 1982, and the other one is from August the 11th, 1983. They report the fact that a world first research project was completed with success, and the name of the head of the research institute, Tony Sedgwick, can be seen there, and my name as the research coordinator, the person devised, invented and organised it, is also mentioned. I sent one of my first essays about health to the Australasian Nurses Journal in 1978, and it was published, so I kept sending them until 15 were published in 5 years. I then sent summaries to 2 medical journals, including the Australian Medical Journal, but although they were considered interesting and worthwhile, I was advised that there wasn't sufficient experimental evidence for publication at that time. 2 years later, I told the head of a research organisation how to solve a major research problem, so he put me in charge, and the world first success was reported in several local and interstate papers. In 1993, I was diagnosed with cancer, so I set about writing books to complete all the evidence I could find until it reached 1,000 pages by 1999. That was about posture and health, those books. In 2014, I sent an essay to the British Medical Journal, which is one of the top 4 in the world. They published it, so I sent them more until 40 were published in 18 months, including another world first discovery, the postural cause of lower left-sided chest pains. Of those 40 essays, about 37 were essays and 3 were attachments. In the past 40 years, over 200 of my letters and essays have been published. In the early stages, writing took a lot of time and caused a lot of pain. And when I sent my letters or essays to newspapers or journals, some were not accepted or were altered, or the findings could be stolen by copyright thieves. So when computers became available, I published all of the good ideas in my books and on my own website. This page summarises my research involved in posture, cancer and heart disease. 1975 I began researching the cause of my own health problems because all treatments were not effective. In 1976 I began researching the relationship between fatigue and exertion and developed a method of exercise treatment and improved the concept to include other influences on the aerobic system. In 1980 I wrote the posture theory. In 1982-3 I scientifically proved the effectiveness of the exercise method for fatigue, reported as a world first in newspapers. In 1988 the term chronic fatigue syndrome was added to the official list of diseases. Other authors started experimenting with the method and called it pacing. In 1993 I was diagnosed with cancer and given 2 months to live and advised to write my will. I also began writing a book called The Posture Theory and selling it to school and public libraries. I continued experimenting with posture, desk position and desk height. In 1997 I was diagnosed with angina due to coronary artery disease and advised to write my will and have bypass surgery in 2 weeks. I read a book about a Pritikin diet and how he used it and added 20 years to his lifespan. I modified it and cured the problem in 6 months. In 1998 I invented the standing computer desk and published conclusions and diagrams about it in the 10th edition of my book in 1999. I was also advised that the cancer had become aggressive and had cancer surgery followed by 6 months of CHOP chemotherapy. In 1999 the cancer returned and more surgery was required, followed by DHAP chemotherapy. And in the year 2000 I had a stem cell transplant, which involved complications, and after 2 weeks I was told that my chances of long-term survival were poor. In the 4th week I was told that I was one of the lucky ones who would probably survive. I was also told that my immune system was permanently damaged and that I would require blood transfusions every 6 weeks for the rest of my life. But I declined and had side effects for 2 years. During that time I completed the printing of the 11th edition of the Posture Theory and sold it to school and public libraries. In 2002 I wrote a book on the health of Alexander Lieber, Robert Louis Stevenson and Fanny Stevenson. In 2004 I was told that my immune system has recovered. In 2006 I published an audio CD on how I cured angina with a vegetarian diet in 1997. This page shows a copy of a CAT scan report which reveals that there was cancer. The diagnosis given by a cancer specialist was, he said, you have cancer in your blood and bone marrow and a CAT scan shows evidence of it in your neck, chest and abdomen. It has spread so far that you've probably had it for more than a decade and it is in its final stages. You have 2 months to live with no hope of a cure, so tidy up your financial affairs, which is a euphemism for write your will, ASAP, as soon as possible. My response was to say to him, thank you for your frank opinion. I asked him to be frank to me, and my thoughts were, I'll add that probably by this. This slide shows the type of ideas that existed before 1975, what my research findings were, and what the ideas are since. Prior to 1975, chronic fatigue was said to have no known cause. It was probably psychological. My research findings found that there's a physical component to chronic fatigue and the associated symptoms. After my theories were written, it's become known as the chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS, more recently as systemic exertion intolerance disease, SEID. Before 1975, said that chronic fatigue patients need to be treated by telling them to gradually increase their level of exercise each week to return to normal health. My research found that the person needs to exercise and do most things at their own way, at their own pace, and stay within their own limits to prevent problems. Nowadays, training as a person's own pace is known as pacing, and staying with limits is now called remaining within the energy envelope. Prior to 1975, the diseases of modern civilization were said to be due to poor diet, the environment, and the worries and stresses of modern life. According to my theories, the changes in disease patterns are mainly due to change from walking through jungles to sitting all day, which compresses the chest and abdomen. Since I wrote my theories, the description of the same ideas are being said to be sitting is harmful to health and sitting is the new smoking. Prior to 1975, the treatment of the disease of modern civilization was to improve diet and minimise stress. My research found that the solution is to stand at the desk with the screen just below eye height and the elbows at keyboard height. Offices all around the world are now being supplied with height adjustable desks with names such as standing computer desks. Prior to 1975, people who sat at desks all day were advised that regular exercise could prevent disease. However, I recommended that they alternate between sitting, moving and standing throughout the day. That is now a standard recommendation. Before 1975, lower left-sided chest pains were said that they couldn't be detected by blood tests, x-rays or CAT scans, so it can't be physical, probably as a psychological cause. My research found that the chest pain is due to postural displacement of the eighth rib, which makes it loose and occasionally slip to pinch a nerve between the ribs. Nowadays, when there are no signs of heart disease, the cause of chest pains is primarily described as musculoskeletal. Prior to 1975, treatment for the lower left-sided chest pain was medication and reassurance there were no signs of heart disease, which often left the patient in doubt and anxious about the cause, especially with each recurrence of the pain. My research found that treatment is to inform the patient of the precise cause and improve posture. Nowadays, patients have been told that the cause is due to a pinched nerve, so they don't worry about the possibility that the doctor has missed something serious. They're also advised to improve posture and that nerve blocks or minor surgery can fix the problem if necessary. This slide shows why the cause of lower left-sided chest pain was a mystery for 3,000 years. It was because clinical examination showed no signs of scratches, cuts or bruises. There's no evidence of broken ribs or any other injury. Stethoscopic inspection showed no abnormal sounds in the lungs or the heart. Measuring body temperature by thermometers was normal, therefore there was no fever. Blood tests were normal. X-rays, CAT scans and MRIs showed no cause. And endoscopy and colonoscopy showed nothing. Nothing was found at surgical inspection of the internal anatomy. There was no evidence of lung or heart disease or disease of the stomach or esophagus, and no evidence of kidney stones, gallstones or appendicitis. The general conclusion was that the cause was unknown or was not physical and must be due to stress or psychological factors. This led to patients having doubts about and anxieties about the possibility that serious problems such as heart disease were being missed. The treatment was to try to persuade them that the pain was due to emotional factors. I discovered that the cause was postural displacement of the eighth rib, and it was published in the online rapid response section of the British Medical Journal topic of assessment and management of medically unexplained symptoms on July the 13th, 2014, as an essay called The Banfield Explanation for Anterior Displacement of the Eighth Rib and the Cause of Previously Unexplainable Chest Pain. This chart shows cost savings for each 5 years from just one of my discoveries, in particular the cause of lower left-sided chest pains. The diagnostic costs before my discovery included the initial consultation where nothing was found, $35, 20 additional consultations where nothing was found, $700, 20 prescribed medications which were ineffective, $200, blood tests, cardiographs, x-rays, CAT scans, MRIs, etc., nothing was found, approximately $2,000 in cost. One trip to hospital by ambulance where nothing was found, $1,000. One surgical investigation, nothing found, $2,000. 5 alternative practitioners, nothing found, $250. 5 alternative treatments, ineffective, $100. Total cost after 5 years, $7,185. The cost for 5% of the population of 300 million patients internationally, $2.155 trillion. The cost per year internationally, $431 billion. The diagnostic costs after my discovery: diagnosing postural displacement of a rib found on first physical examination, $35. The annual cost savings from my discovery, i.e. savings to government healthcare budgets internationally, is over $400 billion. The annual cost savings for each of my unpublished discoveries involve similar magnitudes. The right side of the slide shows a graph which indicates the same principle. The tall graph shows the cost prior to my discovery. The one next to it, very small cost of diagnosing because I found the precise cause. The diagnosing cost before is in blue, after my discovery it's in green. This chart shows the costs of my publications. The Posture Theory was a 1,000-page book. It's now available as an ebook from Amazon.com. It was $65 as a book. It's now $8.44 as an ebook. Contains several hundred illustrations, over 100 references, and an index and a table of contents. Another one of my publications was How I Cured Angina with a Vegetarian Diet. It was available as a CD, $20. It's now available from Amazon.com as a download for 98 cents or an audio CD for $8.98. It's a 40-minute description. This slide shows a description of copyright law relating to primaries and secondaries. According to copyright law, the reason and the principle. When the printing press was invented, it became possible for the owner of a printing press to copy the original books of famous authors and make all the profit while paying the authors nothing, which led to their financial ruin. This meant that there was no incentive to spend the many years' time producing original works, and everyone would wait for something to steal in a few minutes. Apart from the fact that it was unfair to the original authors and offensive to reward criminals, it was also considered to be bad for the advancement of civilization, because no one would waste their time doing anything any differently than had always been done before. Consequently, copyright laws were introduced and formalised by the Berne Convention in 1886 to ensure that the original authors made the majority of the profit, and that those who used the information were required to respect them for their world-first achievement, to acknowledge the individual for their material, to obtain permission from that person before using it, and to pay annual license fees and royalties for each reproduction. Those requirements were not just made for legal reasons, but also because of ethical and moral common sense and the obvious principles of justice. Primaries. These are the authors who are useful to society. The primary person is the one who spends years or decades producing an idea or a book and can write a summary of the concept in a few hours to gain world first status and copyright for their lifetime and 70 years after their death. This page describes secondaries, copyright thieves. There are several types. Firstly, there's the unsophisticated copyright thieves who simply steal the idea and claim to be the author and make all the profit. For example, they may publish the idea in another country or another language or in esoteric form without telling the original author and without mentioning their name as the source. Secondly, there are more devious criminals who contributed absolutely nothing for 20 years and then spent a few hours rewriting exactly the same idea in different words, and who then claim that it is different and therefore legal to steal and profit from it, or to give the idea away for free and therefore deny the original author all the profit and leave them in financial ruin. Thirdly, there are individuals who use the idea as the basis for a product or of patent which they can profit from without paying the original author for anything. Fourthly, there are others who use the idea to teach larger numbers of individuals in exchange for a fee without paying the author, and who organise campaigns to distribute the ideas in exchange for fees, or who use the idea in other ways in exchange for a fee without paying the original author. Fifthly, there are those who benefit from the idea financially or in other ways without paying the original author a fee. Some examples are where I developed the concept of the standing computer desk as a means of treating or preventing health problems in certain individuals, and other authors then rewrite the idea in their own words, peer-review the concept to find it is useful, and then claim it to be their own idea, or teach the idea in exchange for a fee, or include the desks into their businesses to improve the health and productivity of the workers and reduce their healthcare costs, or those who recommend it as a treatment for their patients in exchange for a fee, and then there are governments who benefit financially from the reduction in international healthcare costs without paying the original author for making those benefits possible. This chart is designed to show what can happen after a new idea is developed. Prior to then, nothing happens, but afterwards, the secondary consequences. For example, copyright thieves can claim the credit. Copyright thieves can steal the idea in different languages or countries in order to prevent or delay detection. Sophisticated and educated copyright thieves use exactly the same idea by rewriting it in 2 hours and claiming it is different and therefore not a crime to steal it. Engineers can design standing desks and derive an income from their patent. Technicians and carpenters can manufacture millions of standing desks for profit. Universities can charge students fees to teach the idea. Students qualify in medicine and other healthcare courses and then charge fees to patients to use the method as treatment. Hundreds of millions of patients benefit from improved health and disease prevention. Governments save billions of dollars in healthcare costs annually, and governments pay organisations and businesses to promote the use of standing desks for health reasons to further reduce their costs, the costs of healthcare. There's a misinterpretation of copyright law which refers to words being copyright but ideas are not. So 20-year theories can be stolen by 2 hours of writing, when in actual fact ideas are worth gold and words are cheap. Take away the primary idea and there is no idea to copy. No words to be rewritten. Nothing for copyright thieves to do. Nothing for new engineers to design or carpenters to make. Nothing new for university to teach. Nothing new for students to study. No new treatments to help patients. And nothing new for health organisations to recommend or for international governments to reduce their costs. Copyright thieves have been stealing all my ideas and making all the profit, so it isn't worth my while publishing anything. Here are some of my unpublished essays. How to prevent the chronic fatigue syndrome. How to diagnose the chronic fatigue syndrome. How to treat severe chronic fatigue syndrome. How to prevent relapses in the chronic fatigue syndrome. How to prevent problems related to the exercise method for treating the chronic fatigue syndrome. The cause of previously unexplainable symptoms. How to treat slipped discs and prevent intractable back pain and quadriplegia. How to diagnose slipped discs. What I did to survive cancer for 22 years. How to prevent the adverse long-term effects of the standing computer position. And long-term follow-up studies of several common illnesses. My name is Max Banfield. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. I'll appreciate it if you inform your friends and colleagues that I am the person who developed these world-first ideas, discoveries.